A scream slices through the calm of Crestwood Drive. The sharp, terrified cry of a woman, clutching her child as her heart races. Footsteps pound against the pavement, frantic, desperate. Neighbors rush to their windows, peeking through curtains, their faces filled with alarm. A call to 911, home invasion they say. The sirens grow louder and closer. Police arrive within minutes. Officers sprint toward the scene, their boots pounding the asphalt. Weapons drawn. But the truth? The truth is far more disturbing than anyone could imagine. Welcome to Horror Chill Stories, where the darkest truths often lie hidden beneath the surface. If you're a fan of unsettling, thought-provoking tales, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Now, let's dive in. Crestwood Drive. A street where everything is perfect. The lawns are manicured to perfection. The sidewalks are pristine, reflecting the golden glow of the California sun. The homes, grand, exclusive, and worth millions. The kind of place where people drive sleek, expensive cars and send their children to the finest private schools. And today a new face arrives. Marcus Reed. A 42-year-old black real estate developer. Confident, well-dressed, and every inch the success story. He's worked tirelessly to build his empire, and this new home is the crown jewel of his accomplishments. He steps out of his sleek black Mercedes, adjusting the cuffs of his designer suit. He takes in the sight of his new home, the towering glass walls, the infinity pool that seems to spill into the horizon, the modern, sleek design. It's a place he's earned after years of struggle. Karen Whitmore, 38, a well-dressed stay-at-home mom, steps out of her home with her young son. She's active in the community, prides herself on being open-minded, progressive. She's curious, eager to meet the new neighbor. After all, she considers herself someone who embraces diversity. She rings the doorbell. And in that moment, everything changes. Karen stands on Marcus's doorstep, smiling politely as she waits for the door to open. She's ready to introduce herself, to welcome him to the neighborhood. When the door swings open, she freezes. Standing before her is Marcus, tall, confident, well-dressed. But in that instant, Karen's mind races, her heart begins to pound. Something about the sight of a black man standing in an expensive home, dressed in designer clothes, triggers a deep, instinctual fear she can't quite control. She stumbles back, clutching her son Ethan, who looks up at her with wide, innocent eyes. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Ethan asks, his voice filled with confusion. Karen's pulse quickens. She doesn't know why, but something inside her screams that she needs to protect her son, that something isn't right. Without thinking, she grabs Ethan's hand and starts to run. Her feet pound against the pavement as she screams for help. "Help! Help! He's trying to break in. Call the police." Her voice is high-pitched, frantic, and it echoes down the street. Neighbors begin to peek out of their windows, drawn by the sound of her cries. Some step outside, murmuring to each other, unsure of what's happening. Within minutes, the sound of sirens fills the air. 2 police cars screech to a halt in front of Marcus's home. Officers Brad Dawson and Luis Ramirez step out, their hands hovering near their holsters. Marcus, still standing in his doorway, is confused. He doesn't understand what's happening. "Sir, step outside," Officer Dawson commands, his voice stern. Marcus hesitates, frustration building. "What's going on?" "I live here." Officer Dawson doesn't seem to care. "Step outside now." Marcus, trying to stay calm, takes a deep breath and steps out onto the porch. He's treated like a suspect in his own home, a stranger in a place that should be his sanctuary. Officer Dawson looks him up and down, his eyes narrowing. "What's your business here?" "I live here," Marcus repeats, his voice tight with frustration. "I own this property." But Officer Dawson isn't convinced. He waves his hand dismissively. "We'll see about that." Officer Ramirez, the more measured of the two, steps forward. "Brad, let's just check the paperwork first. We don't know what's going on here, but we don't need to escalate this." But Officer Dawson ignores him, his suspicion growing. "We'll see if you really own this place. In the meantime, stay where we can see you." Marcus feels his stomach twist. He's been through this before, treated with suspicion because of the color of his skin, even though he's done everything right. He pulls out his ID and property documents, trying to prove his innocence. As the officers inspect the papers, the neighbors continue to watch from their windows, whispers spreading through the crowd. Some of them look uneasy, others seem to enjoy the spectacle. It feels like hours before the truth is finally confirmed. Marcus owns the house. Officer Dawson looks embarrassed, his face flushing red. "All right, sir. My apologies. But the damage is done." Marcus feels humiliated, his frustration boiling over. The police cars pull away, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. Marcus stands in front of his home, still processing what just happened. His chest tightens and the sting of humiliation lingers in the air. Karen, now standing a few feet away, watches with a mix of guilt and confusion. Her son Ethan tugs at her sleeve, still not fully understanding why they ran. "Mom, why were you scared of him?" Ethan asks, his voice small and innocent. Karen's breath catches in her throat. She wants to explain, to justify her actions, but the truth is, she doesn't fully understand it herself. Her eyes flicker to Marcus, who stands there, still composed, though the frustration is evident in his posture. He hasn't said a word since the officers left, but his gaze is steady, his expression guarded. I don't know, Ethan," Karen finally murmurs, her voice faltering. "I don't know." The weight of her own fear, her own assumptions, begins to settle on her shoulders. She was sure, certain, that Marcus was a threat, even though she had no reason to believe that. She turns to walk back to her house, but her steps feel heavier now. The guilt is starting to seep in. Later that evening, Karen sits at her kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. She's trying to process everything, but it feels like a blur. Her fear, the police, Marcus's face. Then she comes across something that makes her stomach drop. A real estate listing. Marcus Reed. Her heart races as she reads the details. Marcus doesn't just own the house he lives in. He owns multiple properties in the neighborhood, including hers. The house she and her husband, Tom, have been renting for years. Karen's mind spins. She didn't realize it before, but now it's clear. The man she had racially profiled, the man she had screamed at and accused of being a criminal, was not just a neighbor. He was the one who owned the very place she called home. She feels a cold sweat break out on her palms. The power dynamic has shifted. Marcus, the man she feared, is the one who holds the keys to her home, to her livelihood. The next morning, Karen finds herself standing outside Marcus's house. Her heart pounds in her chest. She knows what she has to do, but the words don't come easily. She rings the doorbell, her fingers trembling slightly. When Marcus opens the door, he doesn't say anything at first. His expression is unreadable. Karen swallows hard, gathering her courage. "Marcus, I need to apologize." He looks at her, his eyes steady, though there's a guardedness to them. "I was wrong," Karen continues, her voice barely above a whisper. "I let my fear get the best of me. I assumed the worst about you and I shouldn't have." She pauses, taking a deep breath. "I'm sorry for what I did. I can't undo it, but I want you to know I recognize my mistake." Marcus doesn't respond immediately. The silence between them feels heavy, like a weight neither of them can lift. Finally he speaks, his voice calm but distant. "It's not just about an apology, Karen. It's about understanding why you acted that way. Why you saw me as a threat." Karen looks down, her eyes filling with guilt. "I don't have an answer for that. But I'm going to work on it. I'm going to learn." Marcus nods slowly. "That's all I can ask for." He doesn't offer forgiveness, not yet. But he doesn't shut the door either. Over the next few weeks, Karen makes a conscious effort to change. She attends workshops on unconscious bias, reads books on race and privilege, and has uncomfortable conversations with friends and family about her own biases. She doesn't expect forgiveness from Marcus, but she does her best to confront the part of herself that led to her actions. Marcus, for his part, remains distant. He's not sure if he can ever fully trust Karen again, but he appreciates that she's trying. Ethan, oblivious to the complexities of race and prejudice, continues to wave at Marcus whenever he sees him. And though Karen's journey is far from over, she begins to understand something crucial. Racism isn't just about hate, it's about fear, assumptions, and the biases we carry without even realizing it. The road to change is long, but it begins with the courage to confront the uncomfortable truths within ourselves. If you found this story thought-provoking, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and share it with your friends. Let's continue spreading awareness and learning from each other. As Maya Angelou once said, we all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry, and we must understand that all the threads of the tapestry are equal in value. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.